Picture this, you're standing in front of a group, sharing an idea you've poured your heart into. Suddenly, someone raises their hand and says, "That's not going to work." The room goes quiet and all eyes are on you. Sound familiar? Criticism, whether it's a passing comment or a full-blown critique, is something we all face. It stings, it shakes us, and sometimes it leaves us questioning ourselves. But what if I told you that criticism doesn't have to be your enemy? What if it could actually become one of your greatest teachers? This is where Stoicism comes in. Stoicism isn't just an ancient philosophy, it's a practical toolkit for life. It teaches us how to handle criticism not with defensiveness or anger, but with grace, resilience, and even gratitude. Imagine being able to face criticism head-on, not as a personal attack, but as an opportunity to grow. That's the power of Stoicism. In this video, we're diving into 25 Stoic ways to handle criticism. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're actionable strategies you can start using today. From understanding the nature of criticism to cultivating emotional resilience, each method will help you turn feedback into fuel for your personal growth. So, whether you're dealing with harsh comments at work, judgment from friends, or even the inner critic in your own mind, this video is for you. By the end, you'll have a roadmap to navigate criticism with confidence and calm. Ready to transform how you respond to feedback? Let's get started. Now, let's dive into the first Stoic way to handle criticism, understanding its nature. Stoicism teaches us that criticism at its core is an external event. It's something that happens outside of us. It's not inherently good or bad, it's just information. What gives criticism its power is how we interpret it and react to it. Think of it like this: if someone throws a ball at you, the ball itself isn't good or bad. What matters is whether you catch it, dodge it, or let it hit you. The same goes for criticism. The key here is to separate the critic's words from your emotional reaction. When someone criticizes you, it's easy to feel attacked, defensive, or even hurt. But Stoicism reminds us that their words are just words. They don't define you, and they don't have to control your emotions. By shifting your mindset to see criticism as neutral, something you can observe rather than absorb, you take away its power to upset you. This doesn't mean ignoring criticism or pretending it doesn't matter. Instead, it's about creating a mental space where you can evaluate it objectively. Ask yourself, is there truth in what's being said? Is it helpful, or is it just noise? When you stop taking criticism personally, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster and open the door to growth. This mindset shift is a game changer. It reduces defensiveness, helps you stay calm under pressure, and allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. And the best part, it's a skill you can practice every day. The next time you face criticism, pause, take a breath, and remind yourself, this is just an external event. How you respond is entirely up to you. Now, let's explore the second Stoic way to handle criticism, practicing the dichotomy of control. This principle is one of the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy, and it's incredibly powerful when it comes to dealing with criticism. The idea is simple yet profound. Some things are within our control and others are not. Stoicism teaches us to focus our energy only on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, while letting go of what we can't control, like other people's opinions or actions. When it comes to criticism, this means recognizing that the words someone says to you are outside your control. You can't stop someone from criticizing you, and you can't change their perspective or intentions. But what you can control is how you respond. You get to decide whether you'll let their words upset you, whether you'll take them to heart, or whether you'll use them as an opportunity to reflect and grow. Let's look at a real-life example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague criticizes a project you've been working on. Their tone is harsh and their feedback feels unfair. In this situation, their criticism is outside your control. You can't change what they've said or how they've said it, but your response is entirely within your power. You could choose to react defensively, argue back, or let their words ruin your day. Or you could take a step back, remind yourself of the dichotomy of control, and focus on what's within your power, your ability to evaluate their feedback objectively, decide if there's any truth to it, and use it to improve your work. This principle doesn't just apply to work. It's relevant in every area of life. If a friend criticizes your choices, or if someone online leaves a negative comment, you can't control their words, but you can control how you let them affect you. By practicing the dichotomy of control, you free yourself from the emotional weight of criticism and empower yourself to respond with clarity and purpose. The beauty of this Stoic practice is that it's not about ignoring criticism or pretending it doesn't matter. It's about shifting your focus to what truly matters, your own actions and mindset. When you master this principle, you'll find that criticism loses its sting, and you'll feel more grounded and resilient no matter what comes your way. With this in mind, let's move forward to the next Stoic way, where we'll explore how to reflect on the intent behind criticism and use it to our advantage. Now let's shift our focus to the third Stoic way to handle criticism, reflecting on the intent behind the criticism. This approach invites us to pause and consider why someone is criticizing us in the first place. Are they trying to help us improve, or are they acting out of frustration, insecurity, or even malice? Understanding the intent behind criticism can completely change how we respond to it. Stoicism teaches us that not all criticism is created equal. Some feedback is genuinely constructive, offered with the goal of helping us grow. Other times, criticism might come from a place of negativity, jealousy, or misunderstanding. By taking a moment to reflect on the critic's intentions, we can avoid jumping to conclusions or reacting impulsively. Instead, we can respond with clarity and purpose, choosing the path that best serves our growth and peace of mind. For example, imagine you're at a family gathering and a relative makes a critical comment about your career choices. Before reacting, ask yourself, is this person genuinely concerned for my well-being, or are they projecting their own insecurities? If their intent is rooted in care, their criticism might be worth considering, even if it's delivered poorly. But if their words seem driven by negativity, you can choose to let them go without letting them affect your self-worth. This practice isn't about justifying harsh or unfair criticism, it's about giving yourself the space to respond thoughtfully rather than emotionally. When we take the time to reflect on intent, we can separate the useful feedback from the noise, allowing us to focus on what truly matters. By adopting this Stoic mindset, we not only protect ourselves from unnecessary emotional turmoil, but also cultivate a deeper sense of empathy. We begin to see that criticism often says more about the critic than it does about us. This understanding can help us respond with grace, whether the feedback is helpful or hurtful. As we move forward, we'll explore how Stoicism encourages us to step back and observe criticism from a detached perspective, allowing us to analyze it objectively and avoid taking it personally. Now, let's explore the fourth Stoic way to handle criticism, embracing the role of the observer. This powerful practice encourages us to step back and view criticism as if we were an impartial third party, someone who isn't emotionally invested in the situation. By adopting this detached perspective, we can analyze criticism more objectively and avoid the trap of taking it personally. Stoicism teaches us that our emotions often cloud our judgment, especially when we feel attacked or misunderstood. When criticism comes our way, it's easy to react defensively or let it sting. But by imagining ourselves as an observer, someone who isn't directly involved, we can create a mental distance that allows us to see the situation more clearly. This doesn't mean we ignore the criticism or dismiss it entirely. Instead, we give ourselves the space to evaluate it without letting it dictate our emotions. For instance, imagine you're at work and a colleague criticizes your approach to a project. Instead of immediately feeling hurt or defensive, try stepping into the role of an observer. Ask yourself, what would an outsider think of this feedback? Is there any truth to it, or is it colored by the critic's personal biases? By viewing the situation from this detached standpoint, you can separate the useful insights from the emotional noise, allowing you to respond with calm and clarity. This practice isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending the criticism doesn't matter. It's about giving yourself the mental space to process it thoughtfully. When we observe criticism rather than absorb it, we gain the ability to decide how much weight it deserves. We can choose to learn from it if it's valid or let it go if it's not. Embracing the role of the observer also helps us recognize that criticism often reflects the critic's perspective more than our own worth. By detaching ourselves, we can see that their words are just one viewpoint, not an absolute truth. This realization can be incredibly freeing, allowing us to maintain our inner peace even in the face of harsh feedback. As we continue, we'll delve into how Stoicism encourages us to use criticism as a mirror, reflecting on what it reveals about ourselves and how it can guide our growth. This next step builds on the foundation of observation, helping us turn even the most challenging feedback into an opportunity for self-improvement. Now, let's shift our focus to the fifth Stoic way to handle criticism, using criticism as a mirror. This approach invites us to see feedback not as an attack but as a reflection of ourselves, a chance to look inward and ask, is there truth here that I can learn from? Stoicism teaches us that criticism, even when delivered harshly, can be a powerful tool for self-improvement if we're willing to engage with it thoughtfully. When someone criticizes us, it's natural to feel defensive or dismissive, especially if the tone is unkind. But Stoicism challenges us to pause and consider the content of the feedback, regardless of how it's delivered. Think of criticism as a mirror held up to us. It may not always show us what we want to see, but it can reveal blind spots or areas where we have room to grow. The key is to approach it with curiosity rather than resistance. For example, imagine a friend points out that you've been canceling plans frequently. Instead of reacting with excuses or frustration, take a moment to reflect. Is there a pattern here? Are you overcommitting or struggling to prioritize your time? By asking these questions, you turn the criticism into a moment of self-awareness, one that can lead to meaningful change. This doesn't mean you have to accept every piece of criticism as absolute truth. Some feedback may be unfair or rooted in the critic's own biases, but even in those cases, there's value in asking, why does this bother me? What can I learn about myself from my reaction? This process of self-reflection helps us grow emotionally and intellectually, making us more resilient and self-aware over time. Using criticism as a mirror also helps us separate our self-worth from the feedback we receive. Stoicism reminds us that our value isn't determined by others' opinions. Instead, it's about how we choose to respond and grow. When we view criticism as an opportunity rather than a threat, we empower ourselves to take control of our personal development. As we move forward, we'll explore how Stoicism encourages us to cultivate emotional resilience, building on the foundation of self-reflection we've just discussed. This next step will show us how to strengthen our inner resolve, ensuring we can face criticism with grace and confidence, no matter how it's delivered. Now, as we step into the sixth Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore how cultivating emotional resilience can transform the way we respond to feedback. Stoicism offers powerful tools like negative visualization and premeditatio malorum practices that prepare us for adversity by helping us anticipate challenges and build inner strength. These techniques aren't about dwelling on the negative, they're about equipping ourselves to face criticism with calm and confidence. Negative visualization, for instance, involves imagining the worst-case scenarios in advance. This might sound counterintuitive, but it's a way to mentally rehearse how we'd handle difficult situations, including harsh criticism. By visualizing how we'd respond to unfair or hurtful feedback, we reduce the emotional shock when it actually happens. It's like having a mental playbook that helps us stay composed even when the words sting. Premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, takes this a step further. It's about actively preparing for the challenges we might face, including criticism. For example, before a big presentation, you might think, what if someone criticizes my ideas? How will I respond? By anticipating this possibility, you're less likely to be caught off guard. Instead of reacting defensively, you can respond thoughtfully, focusing on the substance of the feedback rather than the emotion behind it. To put these practices into action, start by setting aside a few minutes each day to reflect on potential criticisms you might encounter. Ask yourself, what's the worst feedback I could receive today? How would I handle it? This exercise helps you build a mental framework for staying calm and collected, no matter what comes your way. Over time, this preparation strengthens your emotional resilience, making criticism feel less like a threat and more like an opportunity to grow. Another practical step is to practice gratitude for the challenges you face. Stoicism teaches us that adversity, including criticism, is a natural part of life and even a gift in disguise. When someone critiques you, try to see it as a chance to improve, even if it's uncomfortable. This shift in perspective can help you approach feedback with curiosity rather than fear, turning what might feel like an attack into a valuable lesson. As we continue, we'll see how these practices of emotional resilience lay the groundwork for the next Stoic principle, practicing gratitude for criticism. This mindset shift will help us reframe even the harshest feedback as a stepping stone toward personal growth, ensuring we face every challenge with grace and strength. Now, as we shift our focus to the seventh Stoic way to handle criticism, let's delve into the transformative power of practicing gratitude for feedback. At first glance, gratitude and criticism might seem like opposites. One feels warm and uplifting while the other can sting. But Stoicism teaches us that even the harshest words can be a gift if we choose to see them that way. This principle is about reframing criticism as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat to our self-esteem. Think of criticism as a mirror reflecting areas where we can improve. Even if the feedback feels unfair or overly harsh, there's often a kernel of truth hidden within it. The Stoics believed that adversity, including criticism, is a natural part of life and even a necessary one. Without challenges, we wouldn't have the chance to grow stronger, wiser, or more resilient. By practicing gratitude for criticism, we shift our mindset from defensiveness to curiosity, asking ourselves, what can I learn from this? One way to start is by acknowledging that criticism, no matter how uncomfortable, is a sign that someone is paying attention to your work or actions. It means you're putting yourself out there, taking risks, and striving to make an impact. That alone is worth appreciating. Next time you receive feedback, try pausing for a moment and saying to yourself, "Thank you for pointing this out. It gives me a chance to improve." This simple act of gratitude can disarm the emotional sting and help you focus on the constructive aspects of the feedback. Another practical step is to keep a criticism journal. Whenever you receive feedback, write it down along with your initial reaction. Then take a step back and ask yourself, what's the lesson here? How can I use this to grow? Over time, you'll start to see patterns in the feedback you receive, and you'll be better equipped to address recurring issues. This practice not only helps you grow, but also builds your resilience, making criticism feel less like an attack and more like a tool for self-improvement. Finally, remember that gratitude doesn't mean you have to agree with every critique. It simply means you're open to the possibility of learning something valuable. By reframing criticism as an opportunity rather than a threat, you'll find yourself approaching feedback with a sense of calm and curiosity. This mindset shift is at the heart of Stoicism. It's about finding value in every experience, even the difficult ones. As we move forward, we'll explore how this practice of gratitude ties into the next Stoic principle, avoiding the trap of seeking approval. By freeing ourselves from the need for external validation, we can handle criticism with even greater ease and confidence. Now, as we step into the 8th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore a principle that can profoundly shift how we perceive feedback, avoiding the trap of seeking approval. At its core, this Stoic teaching reminds us that relying too heavily on external validation can leave us vulnerable to criticism and undermine our inner peace. When we constantly seek approval from others, we give away our power, allowing their opinions to dictate our self-worth. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from aligning our actions with our own values, rather than chasing the ever-changing opinions of those around us. Think about it this way: when we depend on others to validate our choices, we're essentially handing them the keys to our happiness. If they praise us, we feel good. If they criticize us, we feel crushed. This roller coaster of emotions can be exhausting and ultimately unfulfilling. Stoicism teaches us to detach from this cycle by focusing on what truly matters, our own moral character and the principles we choose to live by. When we anchor ourselves in our values, criticism loses its power to shake us. Instead of worrying about whether others approve, we can ask ourselves, am I acting in alignment with my own standards? Am I being true to who I am? One practical way to break free from the approval trap is to regularly reflect on your core values. What matters most to you? Is it integrity, kindness, perseverance, or something else? Write these values down and revisit them often. When criticism comes your way, use it as an opportunity to check in with yourself. Does the feedback align with your values? If it does, consider it a chance to grow. If it doesn't, let it go without letting it define you. This practice helps you stay grounded in your own sense of purpose, rather than being swayed by external opinions. Another key aspect of this Stoic principle is recognizing that not all criticism is created equal. Some feedback may come from a place of genuine concern, while other critiques may stem from jealousy, insecurity, or misunderstanding. By focusing on your own values, you can better discern which criticisms are worth your attention and which are simply noise. This doesn't mean ignoring all feedback, it means filtering it through the lens of your own principles, so you can respond with clarity and confidence. Ultimately, avoiding the trap of seeking approval is about reclaiming your autonomy. It's about understanding that your worth isn't determined by what others think of you, but by how you choose to live your life. When you stop chasing external validation, you free yourself from the fear of criticism and open the door to a deeper sense of fulfillment. This Stoic mindset doesn't just help you handle criticism, it empowers you to live authentically, guided by your own inner compass. As we move forward, we'll see how this principle connects to the next Stoic practice, responding with silence. By learning when to speak and when to stay quiet, we can navigate criticism with even greater wisdom and poise. Now, as we shift our focus to the 9th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the power of silence. In moments of criticism, especially when emotions run high, the Stoics teach us that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Silence, in this context, isn't about ignoring the criticism or avoiding the issue. It's about creating space for clarity and self-control. When we respond with silence, we prevent the situation from escalating into unnecessary conflict and give ourselves the opportunity to reflect before reacting. Think about it. When someone criticizes us, our first instinct is often to defend ourselves or fire back with a rebuttal. But in the heat of the moment, our emotions can cloud our judgment, leading to words we might later regret. Silence acts as a buffer, allowing us to step back and assess the situation objectively. It's a way of saying, I hear you, but I'm choosing not to engage impulsively. This pause can be incredibly powerful, not only for diffusing tension, but also for demonstrating emotional maturity. The Stoics believed that our reactions to criticism reveal more about us than the criticism itself. By responding with silence, we show that we're in control of our emotions and that we value thoughtful reflection over impulsive reactions. This doesn't mean we're conceding or agreeing with the criticism. It simply means we're choosing not to let it dictate our behavior. Silence can be a form of strength, signaling that we're secure enough in ourselves to resist the urge to lash out. Practicing silence also gives us time to consider whether the criticism holds any merit. Is there truth in what's being said? Is this feedback worth addressing, or is it better to let it go? By taking a moment to reflect, we can respond more intentionally rather than reacting out of anger or defensiveness. This approach aligns with the Stoic principle of focusing on what we can control, our own actions and responses, rather than getting caught up in the emotions of the moment. Of course, responding with silence doesn't mean we should never address criticism. There are times when a thoughtful, measured response is necessary. But even in those cases, starting with silence can help us gather our thoughts and approach the situation with greater wisdom. It's about choosing when to speak and when to listen, ensuring that our words carry weight and purpose. As we move forward, we'll see how this practice of silence connects to the next Stoic principle, using humor to diffuse tension. By combining these tools, we can navigate criticism with grace, resilience, and a sense of lightness that keeps us grounded even in challenging moments. Now, as we step into the 10th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's uncover the surprising role of humor in maintaining perspective. The Stoics, often seen as serious and unyielding, actually valued humor as a powerful tool for diffusing tension and keeping life's challenges in perspective. When faced with criticism, a well-timed joke or a light-hearted remark can act as a shield, protecting us from taking things too personally while disarming the critic in the process. Think about it, criticism often feels heavy, like a weight pressing down on us, but humor has a unique way of lifting that weight, transforming a tense moment into something more manageable. It's not about mocking the critic or dismissing their feedback. It's about using humor to create a sense of lightness and balance. For example, imagine someone criticizes your work, saying it's not up to par. Instead of reacting defensively, you might smile and say, "Well, I guess I'll have to add par excellence to my to-do list." This kind of response doesn't escalate the situation. Instead, it shifts the tone, making it clear that you're not rattled by the comment. The Stoics believed that humor helps us maintain emotional equilibrium. By finding something to laugh about, even in difficult moments, we remind ourselves that criticism is just one small part of a much larger picture. It's a way of saying, "This doesn't define me and I won't let it ruin my day." Humor also has a way of humanizing both the critic and the criticized. It reminds us that everyone makes mistakes and no one is immune to judgment. When we laugh together, even in the face of criticism, we create a sense of connection rather than division. Of course, using humor effectively requires a certain level of self-awareness and timing. It's not about deflecting every critique with a joke or avoiding serious conversations. Instead, it's about knowing when a touch of humor can ease the tension and help everyone involved see the situation more clearly. For instance, if a colleague points out a mistake you made, you might respond with, "Well, I guess even my best ideas need a little polishing." This kind of light-hearted acknowledgement shows that you're open to feedback without letting it undermine your confidence. Humor also serves as a reminder that criticism, no matter how harsh, is often temporary. By laughing at the absurdity of a situation or the intensity of someone's reaction, we put things into perspective. We recognize that this moment, like all moments, will pass. This aligns with the Stoic principle of focusing on what's within our control, our attitude and response, rather than getting caught up in the emotions of the moment. As we move forward, we'll see how this practice of using humor connects to the next Stoic principle, focusing on our virtues. By combining these tools, we can navigate criticism with grace, resilience, and a sense of lightness that keeps us grounded even in challenging moments. Now, as we shift our focus to the 11th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the profound idea of prioritizing our virtues over external approval. The Stoics believed that true strength and peace come from within, not from the opinions of others. When we center our lives on living virtuously, cultivating qualities like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, criticism loses much of its power to shake us. Instead of seeking validation from outside, we find confidence in our own moral character. Think about it. When we're overly concerned with what others think, we give them control over our emotions. Every critique feels like a personal attack because we've tied our self-worth to external approval. But Stoicism teaches us to detach from that need. By focusing on our virtues, we remind ourselves that our value isn't determined by someone else's opinion. It's rooted in how we choose to live and the principles we uphold. For example, if someone criticizes your decision to stand up for what's right, you can take comfort in knowing that you acted with integrity, regardless of their judgment. This shift in focus doesn't mean ignoring criticism altogether. Instead, it allows us to evaluate feedback through the lens of our values. If the criticism aligns with our virtues, say, it points out a way we could act more justly or wisely, we can use it as an opportunity for growth. But if it's rooted in malice or misunderstanding, we can let it go without feeling diminished. By anchoring ourselves in our virtues, we create a stable foundation that criticism can't easily erode. The Stoics also remind us that living virtuously is a lifelong practice, not a destination. We'll make mistakes, face setbacks, and encounter criticism along the way. But when we're guided by our moral compass, those challenges become opportunities to strengthen our character rather than threats to our self-esteem. For instance, if someone mocks your efforts to improve, you can respond with humility and determination, knowing that growth is more important than their approval. This approach also helps us see criticism in its proper context. When we're focused on living a virtuous life, the opinions of others, whether positive or negative, become secondary. We're no longer chasing praise or fearing blame. Instead, we're committed to being the best version of ourselves, regardless of external judgments. This mindset not only reduces the sting of criticism, but also frees us to live more authentically and purposefully. As we move forward, we'll see how this focus on virtues connects to the next Stoic principle, practicing empathy toward the critic. By combining these practices, we can navigate criticism with both strength and compassion, staying true to ourselves while understanding the perspectives of others. Now, as we step into the 12th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the transformative power of empathy. The Stoics teach us that understanding the perspective of those who criticize us can be a profound tool for reducing anger and fostering compassion. When we take a moment to consider why someone might be offering criticism, we often find that their words are less about us and more about their own struggles, insecurities, or misunderstandings. This shift in perspective can soften our emotional reactions and help us respond with greater clarity and kindness. Imagine a scenario where a colleague criticizes your work in a harsh or unkind way. At first, it's natural to feel defensive or hurt. But what if, instead of reacting immediately, you pause to consider what might be driving their behavior? Perhaps they're under immense pressure themselves, or maybe they're projecting their own frustrations onto you. By practicing empathy, you can see their criticism not as a personal attack, but as a reflection of their inner world. This doesn't excuse unkind behavior, but it does help you approach the situation with a calmer, more balanced mindset. Empathy also allows us to separate the message from the messenger. Even if the criticism is delivered poorly, there may still be valuable insights hidden within it. When we approach feedback with an open heart and a willingness to understand, we're better equipped to extract what's useful and let go of what's not. For example, if a friend criticizes your choices out of genuine concern, recognizing their care for you can help you receive their words with gratitude rather than resentment. On the other hand, if the criticism stems from jealousy or insecurity, empathy can help you respond with grace rather than retaliation. The Stoics remind us that everyone is fighting their own battles, and criticism often reveals more about the critic than the person being criticized. By practicing empathy, we not only diffuse tension but also cultivate a deeper sense of connection with others. This doesn't mean we have to agree with every critique or tolerate mistreatment. Rather, it means we choose to respond from a place of understanding rather than anger. This approach not only benefits our relationships but also strengthens our own emotional resilience. As we move forward, we'll see how this practice of empathy ties into the next Stoic principle, avoiding overreactions to both praise and blame. By combining these practices, we can navigate the highs and lows of external opinions with a steady, grounded perspective, staying true to ourselves while fostering compassion for others. Now, as we shift our focus to the 13th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the importance of maintaining balance in the face of both praise and blame. The Stoics teach us that overreacting to either extreme, whether it's glowing compliments or harsh criticism, can shake our sense of self-worth and pull us away from our inner stability. When we place too much weight on external opinions, we risk becoming dependent on them, allowing others to dictate how we feel about ourselves. Think about it this way. If you receive a compliment and let it inflate your ego, you might start seeking that validation constantly, fearing the moment it's taken away. On the other hand, if you let criticism crush you, you might spiral into self-doubt, questioning your abilities and worth. The Stoics remind us that both praise and blame are external events, and they don't define who we are. What truly matters is how we respond to them, whether we can stay grounded in our values and maintain a steady sense of self. Consider a scenario where you're praised for a project at work. While it's natural to feel good about it, the Stoic approach would be to acknowledge the praise without letting it consume you. You might think, "This is nice, but it doesn't change who I am or what I'm capable of." Similarly, if someone criticizes your efforts, you can reflect on their feedback without letting it undermine your confidence. You might ask yourself, is there something I can learn here, or is this simply their opinion? By staying centered, you avoid the emotional roller coaster that comes with overreacting to external judgments. This principle ties closely to the Stoic idea of focusing on what's within our control. We can't control how others perceive us or what they say about us, but we can control how we interpret and respond to their words. When we stop giving praise and blame so much power over us, we free ourselves from the need for constant approval and the fear of rejection. This doesn't mean we become indifferent or unfeeling. It means we choose to prioritize our inner peace over external validation. As we move forward, we'll see how this practice of equanimity connects to the next Stoic principle, remembering that criticism is temporary. By combining these ideas, we can navigate the ups and downs of life with a steady hand, staying true to ourselves no matter what others say. Now, as we step into the 14th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's take a moment to reflect on the fleeting nature of all things. The Stoics remind us that nothing in life is permanent, not the highs, not the lows, and certainly not the criticism we face. This perspective can be incredibly liberating when we find ourselves weighed down by negative feedback. Instead of letting criticism linger in our minds, we can choose to see it as a passing cloud, something that will eventually drift away. Think about a time when you received harsh criticism. In the moment, it might have felt overwhelming, even paralyzing, but as days or weeks passed, did it still hold the same weight? Chances are it didn't. The Stoics encourage us to apply this understanding proactively. When criticism comes our way, we can remind ourselves that it, too, is temporary. It doesn't define us and it won't last forever. This mindset shift allows us to process the feedback without letting it consume us. Consider the example of a public figure or an artist who faces constant scrutiny. While criticism might flood their world one day, it's often forgotten the next as the spotlight shifts to something new. The Stoic approach would be to adopt a similar detachment, recognizing that the opinions of others are fleeting and often influenced by circumstances beyond our control. By focusing on what truly matters, our values, our growth, and our actions, we can avoid getting stuck in the cycle of dwelling on negativity. This principle also ties back to the Stoic practice of focusing on the present moment. When we anchor ourselves in the here and now, we're less likely to ruminate on past criticisms or worry about future ones. Instead, we can channel our energy into what we can do today to improve ourselves and move forward. Criticism, after all, is just one moment in time. It doesn't have to dictate our entire journey. As we continue, we'll explore how this idea of impermanence connects to the next Stoic principle, using criticism as fuel for growth. By combining these insights, we can transform even the harshest feedback into opportunities for resilience and self-improvement. Now, as we shift our focus to the 15th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore how Stoicism teaches us to turn criticism into a powerful catalyst for growth. Rather than seeing feedback as a setback, the Stoics encourage us to view it as an opportunity, a challenge that pushes us to become better versions of ourselves. This mindset transforms criticism from something to fear into something to embrace, a tool that can propel us forward rather than hold us back. Think of criticism as a mirror that reflects areas where we can improve. When someone points out a flaw or offers constructive feedback, it's an invitation to grow, not an attack on our worth. The Stoics believed that every obstacle, including criticism, is an opportunity to practice virtue, whether that's patience, humility, or resilience. By reframing criticism in this way, we can approach it with curiosity rather than defensiveness, asking ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to become stronger? History is filled with examples of individuals who turned criticism into fuel for greatness. Take Thomas Edison, for instance. Throughout his career, he faced relentless criticism and failure. Yet he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." His ability to see criticism and failure as stepping stones rather than roadblocks ultimately led to groundbreaking inventions that changed the world. Similarly, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who was born into slavery, faced countless hardships and criticisms, yet he used these challenges to refine his philosophy, teaching others how to find freedom and strength within themselves, regardless of external circumstances. These examples remind us that criticism, when approached with the right mindset, can be a powerful motivator. Instead of letting it discourage us, we can use it to sharpen our skills, deepen our understanding, and strengthen our character. The Stoics would argue that the greatest growth often comes from the most uncomfortable moments, those times when we're forced to confront our weaknesses and rise above them. As we move forward, we'll see how this principle of using criticism as fuel connects to the next Stoic practice, cultivating self-compassion. By balancing growth with kindness toward ourselves, we can navigate criticism with both strength and grace, ensuring that it serves as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Now, as we step into the 16th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the delicate balance between self-improvement and self-acceptance. While Stoicism emphasizes growth and resilience, it also teaches us the importance of being kind to ourselves, especially when faced with criticism. This principle reminds us that self-compassion is not a weakness but a vital tool for navigating life's challenges with grace and strength. When criticism comes our way, it's easy to fall into the trap of harsh self-judgment. We might start questioning our abilities, doubting our worth, or even spiraling into feelings of inadequacy. But the Stoics would urge us to pause and ask, would I speak to a friend this way? Often, we're far kinder to others than we are to ourselves. Practicing self-compassion means extending that same kindness inward, recognizing that we're human and, like everyone else, imperfect. Self-compassion doesn't mean ignoring areas where we can improve. Instead, it's about approaching criticism with a balanced mindset. We can acknowledge the feedback, reflect on its validity, and take steps to grow, all while treating ourselves with understanding and patience. This approach prevents criticism from becoming a source of shame or self-doubt. Instead, it becomes a gentle nudge toward progress, not a harsh blow to our self-esteem. Think of it this way: self-compassion is like a safety net. When we stumble or face criticism, it catches us, allowing us to regroup and move forward without unnecessary suffering. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to be gentle with his own flaws, writing in his meditations, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But even in being strict, he advocated for a kind of inner discipline that was rooted in self-respect, not self-punishment. By practicing self-compassion, we create a healthier relationship with criticism. We can learn from it without letting it define us. This balance between striving to improve and accepting ourselves as we are is at the heart of Stoic wisdom. It allows us to face criticism with both humility and confidence, knowing that our worth isn't tied to others' opinions. As we continue, we'll see how this practice of self-compassion ties into the next Stoic principle, letting go of the need to defend ourselves. By embracing kindness toward ourselves, we free up the energy to respond to criticism with clarity and purpose, rather than defensiveness or fear. Now, as we move into the 17th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the liberating practice of letting go of the need to defend ourselves. Stoicism teaches us that not every criticism requires a response, and not every opinion needs to be challenged. In fact, the constant urge to defend ourselves can often lead to unnecessary stress, conflict, and even distraction from what truly matters. Think about it: when someone criticizes us, our instinct is often to explain, justify, or even argue back. We feel the need to prove ourselves right or to make the other person see our perspective. But the Stoics remind us that this impulse is rooted in our desire for external validation. By constantly seeking to defend ourselves, we give others' opinions too much power over our peace of mind. Instead, Stoicism encourages us to focus on what's within our control, our own thoughts, actions, and values, and let go of the rest. This doesn't mean we should ignore all criticism or never stand up for ourselves. Rather, it's about choosing our battles wisely. Some criticisms are worth addressing, especially if they're constructive and come from a place of care. But many are simply expressions of others' biases, insecurities, or misunderstandings, and these don't require our energy or attention. By letting go of the need to defend ourselves against every critique, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of trying to please or convince others. Consider the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who famously said, "If someone tells you that so and so speaks ill of you, don't defend yourself against what was said, but reply, 'Yes, and he doesn't know the half of it, or he would have mentioned these other faults too.'" This humorous yet profound response highlights the futility of trying to control others' opinions. Instead of engaging in a battle of words, Epictetus chose to focus on his own self-awareness and growth. By practicing this principle, we can reduce the emotional weight of criticism. We learn to respond with calmness and clarity rather than defensiveness or anger. This doesn't mean we become indifferent. It means we prioritize our inner peace over external approval. Over time, this shift in mindset can lead to greater confidence and resilience, as we no longer feel the need to prove ourselves to everyone who crosses our path. As we continue, we'll see how this practice of letting go ties into the next Stoic principle, focusing on the bigger picture. By releasing the need to defend ourselves, we create space to align our actions with our deeper values and goals, rather than getting caught up in the noise of others' opinions. Now, as we shift our focus to the 18th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the power of zooming out to see the bigger picture. Stoicism teaches us that criticism, no matter how harsh or personal it may feel, is often just a small part of a much larger landscape. When we step back and view it in the context of our broader goals, values, and purpose, it can lose much of its sting. Imagine standing in front of a massive painting. If you focus only on a single brushstroke, it might seem messy or out of place. But when you step back and take in the entire artwork, that one stroke becomes part of a beautiful, cohesive whole. Criticism works the same way. When we're too close to it, it can feel overwhelming or unfair. But when we zoom out, we see it as just one small piece of our journey, a journey defined by our actions, choices, and the principles we live by. The Stoics remind us that our time and energy are limited. If we spend too much of it reacting to every criticism, we risk losing sight of what truly matters. Instead, they encourage us to ask ourselves, does this criticism align with my values? Does it help me move closer to my goals? If the answer is no, then it's likely not worth our attention. By focusing on the bigger picture, we can prioritize what's meaningful and let go of what's not. Consider Marcus Aurelius, who often reflected on the fleeting nature of life and the importance of staying aligned with one's purpose. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This wisdom applies perfectly to handling criticism. When we focus on our inner compass, our values, goals, and sense of purpose, we can navigate criticism with clarity and calmness rather than getting swept up in the moment. This perspective also helps us avoid overreacting to criticism. When we see it as just one small part of a much larger journey, it becomes easier to let go of the need to defend ourselves or prove our worth. Instead, we can channel our energy into what truly matters, living virtuously, pursuing our goals, and contributing to the world in meaningful ways. As we move forward, we'll see how this practice of focusing on the bigger picture ties into the next Stoic principle, learning to differentiate between helpful and harmful criticism. By keeping our eyes on the larger landscape, we can better discern which criticisms deserve our attention and which we can confidently let go. Now, as we step into the 19th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's focus on a skill that can save us a lot of unnecessary stress, learning to differentiate between helpful and harmful criticism. Stoicism teaches us that not all criticism is created equal. Some of it can be a valuable tool for growth, while other forms are little more than noise. The key is knowing how to tell the difference. Think of criticism like food. Some of it nourishes us, giving us the energy and insight we need to grow stronger. Other kinds are like junk food, empty calories that might taste good in the moment but leave us feeling worse in the long run. The Stoics encourage us to develop the wisdom to recognize which is which. Constructive criticism, even when it's hard to hear, often comes from a place of care or a genuine desire to help us improve. It's specific, actionable, and rooted in truth. On the other hand, harmful criticism tends to be vague, personal, or driven by emotions like jealousy or insecurity. It's less about helping us and more about tearing us down. So, how do we tell the difference? Start by asking yourself a few questions. First, is the criticism specific? If someone points out a particular behavior or action and offers a clear suggestion for improvement, it's likely worth considering. But if the criticism is vague or overly general, like "you're just not good enough," it's probably not helpful. Second, consider the source. Is this person someone you respect or trust? Do they have your best interests at heart? If the answer is yes, their feedback might be worth reflecting on. If not, it's okay to let it go. Finally, ask yourself how the criticism makes you feel. Constructive feedback, even when it stings, often leaves us with a sense of clarity or motivation to improve. Harmful criticism, on the other hand, tends to leave us feeling defensive, angry, or drained. The Stoics remind us that we don't have to accept every piece of criticism that comes our way. Just as we wouldn't eat every dish placed in front of us, we don't have to internalize every critique. By learning to discern between what's helpful and what's harmful, we can focus our energy on the feedback that truly matters and let go of the rest. This doesn't mean ignoring all negative feedback, it means being selective, so we can grow without being weighed down by unnecessary negativity. As we move forward, we'll explore how this practice of discernment ties into the next Stoic principle, focusing on our efforts rather than the outcomes. By learning to separate helpful criticism from harmful noise, we can better align our actions with our values and goals, creating a life that's not only resilient but also deeply fulfilling. Now, as we shift our focus to the 20th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore a principle that can transform how we respond to feedback, practicing detachment from outcomes. Stoicism teaches us that while we can control our actions and efforts, the results of those efforts are often beyond our control. This mindset is especially powerful when it comes to handling criticism about our failures or shortcomings. By focusing on what we can do rather than obsessing over how things turn out, we build resilience and reduce the emotional weight of criticism. Imagine you've worked tirelessly on a project, pouring your energy and creativity into it, only to receive harsh feedback about the final result. It's easy to feel defeated, to take the criticism personally, and to question your abilities. But the Stoics remind us that the outcome of any endeavor is influenced by countless factors outside our control: timing, luck, other people's opinions, and even unforeseen circumstances. What we can control, however, is the effort we put in, the integrity we bring to the task, and the lessons we learn along the way. When we detach from the outcome and focus on these aspects, criticism loses its sting. Instead of seeing feedback as a judgment of our worth, we can view it as an opportunity to refine our efforts and grow. This principle also helps us handle criticism about past failures with greater grace. Let's say someone points out a mistake you made or a goal you didn't achieve. Instead of dwelling on the disappointment, you can reflect on what you did right, what you learned, and how you've improved since then. The Stoics encourage us to see failure not as a reflection of our value, but as a natural part of the learning process. By detaching from the outcome, we free ourselves from the fear of failure and the pressure to always succeed. This shift in perspective allows us to approach criticism with curiosity rather than defensiveness, asking ourselves, what can I take from this to do better next time? Practicing detachment from outcomes doesn't mean we stop caring about results altogether. It simply means we prioritize the process over the product. When we focus on doing our best regardless of how things turn out, we build a sense of inner stability that criticism can't easily shake. This mindset also helps us stay grounded when we receive praise, reminding us that external validation is fleeting and that true fulfillment comes from living in alignment with our values. As we prepare to move into the next Stoic principle, we'll see how this practice of detachment ties into using criticism to strengthen our relationships. By focusing on our efforts rather than the outcomes, we create space for growth, connection, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. Now, as we step into the 21st Stoic way to handle criticism, let's consider how feedback can actually become a tool to strengthen our relationships. At first glance, criticism might seem like something that drives people apart. After all, it can feel uncomfortable or even confrontational. But Stoicism offers a different perspective. Criticism, when handled well, can deepen connections and foster mutual respect. The key lies in how we respond. When someone criticizes us, it's natural to feel defensive or upset. But Stoicism teaches us to pause and reflect before reacting. Instead of seeing criticism as an attack, we can view it as an opportunity to understand the other person's perspective. Maybe they're pointing out something we genuinely need to work on, or perhaps they're expressing a concern that's important to them. By responding calmly and thoughtfully, we show that we value their input and are willing to engage in a constructive dialogue. This approach not only diffuses tension but also builds trust, as it demonstrates emotional maturity and a willingness to grow. Think about a time when someone gave you feedback that initially stung, but later helped you improve. Maybe it was a friend pointing out a habit you didn't realize was affecting your relationship, or a colleague suggesting a better way to handle a project. When we take such feedback to heart and act on it, we show that we respect the other person's opinion and care about the relationship. This creates a positive cycle. The more we respond thoughtfully to criticism, the more others feel comfortable sharing honest feedback with us, which in turn strengthens the bond. Stoicism also reminds us that criticism often comes from a place of care, even if it's not delivered perfectly. People who take the time to give feedback, whether it's a partner, a friend, or a coworker, are often invested in the relationship and want to see it thrive. By focusing on their intentions rather than the tone of their words, we can approach criticism with empathy and openness. This doesn't mean we have to agree with everything they say, but it does mean we can listen without judgment and respond with kindness. Ultimately, using criticism to strengthen relationships is about shifting our mindset. Instead of seeing feedback as a threat, we can see it as a gift, a chance to learn, grow, and connect more deeply with others. When we embrace this Stoic approach, we not only handle criticism better, but also create stronger, more meaningful relationships built on trust and mutual respect. As we move forward, we'll explore another universal truth about criticism, the reminder that everyone faces it. This perspective can help us feel less isolated and more connected to others, even in moments of vulnerability. Now, as we shift our focus to the 22nd Stoic way to handle criticism, let's take a moment to reflect on a simple yet profound truth. Everyone faces criticism. It's easy to feel singled out or isolated when we're on the receiving end of harsh words, but Stoicism reminds us that criticism is a universal experience. No one, no matter how successful, talented, or well-liked, is immune to it. Recognizing this can be incredibly freeing. It helps us realize that we're not alone in this struggle and that criticism is simply part of the human condition. Think about it, even the most admired figures in history, artists, leaders, philosophers, faced their fair share of criticism. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, was no exception. As a Roman emperor, he was constantly under scrutiny, yet he chose to view criticism as an opportunity for growth rather than a personal attack. By reminding ourselves that criticism is something everyone encounters, we can shift our perspective. Instead of feeling victimized, we can see it as a shared experience that connects us to others. This Stoic insight also helps us cultivate empathy. When we realize that others are just as vulnerable to criticism as we are, it becomes easier to extend compassion not only to ourselves but also to those who criticize us. Perhaps the person delivering the criticism is struggling with their own insecurities or frustrations. Understanding this can soften our reaction and help us respond with patience rather than defensiveness. It's a reminder that we're all navigating the same challenges, and that criticism often says more about the critic than it does about us. Moreover, recognizing the universality of criticism can help us build resilience. When we accept that criticism is an inevitable part of life, we stop seeing it as a reflection of our worth. Instead, we can approach it with a sense of detachment, knowing that it's just one person's opinion in a sea of voices. This doesn't mean we ignore feedback. Stoicism encourages us to learn from it when it's constructive, but it does mean we don't let it define us. By embracing this mindset, we can face criticism with greater confidence and less fear. So, the next time you find yourself on the receiving end of criticism, take a deep breath and remind yourself, this is something everyone experiences. You're not alone, and this moment doesn't define you. By seeing criticism as a shared human experience, you can feel more connected to others, more resilient in the face of adversity, and more at peace with yourself. And as we move forward, we'll explore how practicing forgiveness toward those who criticize us can further deepen our sense of inner peace and connection. Now, as we step into the 23rd Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the transformative power of forgiveness. Stoicism teaches us that those who criticize us are often driven by their own struggles, ignorance, insecurity, or even pain. When we recognize this, it becomes easier to extend forgiveness rather than hold on to resentment. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, isn't about excusing harmful behavior. It's about freeing ourselves from the emotional weight of anger and bitterness. Think about it this way: when someone criticizes us, their words often reveal more about their inner world than about us. They might be projecting their own fears, frustrations, or unmet needs. By choosing to forgive, we acknowledge that their criticism is a reflection of their limitations, not ours. This doesn't mean we agree with their words or let them off the hook for hurtful behavior. Instead, it means we refuse to let their negativity define our emotional state. Forgiveness is in many ways an act of self-liberation. Stoicism also reminds us that holding onto resentment only harms us in the long run. When we cling to anger, we give the critic power over our peace of mind. Forgiveness, on the other hand, allows us to reclaim that power. It's a way of saying, "I won't let your words control how I feel." This doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, one that requires patience and self-awareness. But over time, forgiving those who criticize us can help us cultivate a deeper sense of inner calm and resilience. Consider Marcus Aurelius again. As a leader, he faced constant criticism, yet he chose to respond with understanding rather than resentment. He wrote in his meditations about the importance of seeing others as flawed human beings just like ourselves. This perspective allowed him to approach criticism with compassion rather than hostility. By following his example, we can learn to forgive not because the critic deserves it, but because we deserve the peace that comes with letting go. Forgiveness also opens the door to growth. When we release the grip of resentment, we create space for reflection and learning. Instead of dwelling on the hurt, we can ask ourselves, is there any truth in this criticism? Can I use it to improve? Even if the answer is no, the act of forgiving helps us move forward with clarity and purpose. It's a reminder that our worth isn't determined by others' opinions, but by how we choose to respond to them. So, the next time you're faced with criticism, consider practicing forgiveness not for the critic's sake, but for your own. Recognize that their words may stem from their own struggles, and choose to let go of the resentment that might otherwise weigh you down. By doing so, you'll not only free yourself from emotional burdens, but also strengthen your ability to face criticism with grace and resilience. And as we continue, we'll explore how using criticism to refine our goals can further empower us on our Stoic journey. Now, as we shift our focus to the 24th Stoic way to handle criticism, let's consider how feedback can serve as a powerful tool for refining our goals and priorities. Stoicism teaches us that criticism, when approached with the right mindset, can act as a mirror, reflecting areas where we might need to adjust or realign our actions. Instead of dismissing criticism outright or letting it derail us, we can use it to sharpen our focus and ensure that our efforts are in harmony with our deepest values. Imagine criticism as a compass, pointing us toward areas where we might have strayed from our intended path. For example, if someone critiques your work for lacking detail, it might be an opportunity to revisit your approach and ensure that your efforts reflect the care and precision you value. Even if the criticism feels harsh or unwarranted, there's often a kernel of truth that can help us grow. The key is to sift through the feedback, separating what's useful from what's not, and using it to refine your goals. Stoicism also reminds us that our goals should be rooted in virtue and purpose, not in the pursuit of external validation. Criticism can help us question whether we're truly living in alignment with our principles or if we've been swayed by the opinions of others. For instance, if you're criticized for taking a stand on an issue you care about, it might be a sign that you're staying true to your values, even if it's unpopular. On the other hand, if feedback highlights a disconnect between your actions and your stated priorities, it's an invitation to reassess and realign. consider the example of Seneca, who often wrote about the importance of self-examination and aligning one's actions with their highest ideals. He believed that criticism, when used wisely, could help us strip away distractions and focus on what truly matters. By viewing feedback as a tool for refinement rather than a personal attack, we can approach it with curiosity and openness, asking ourselves, does this criticism reveal a gap between my goals and my actions? How can I use this insight to move closer to the person I aspire to be? This process isn't about changing who you are to please others. It's about becoming more intentional in how you pursue your goals. Criticism can act as a catalyst for growth, pushing you to clarify your priorities and take meaningful steps toward them. It's a reminder that the path to living a virtuous life isn't always smooth, but every piece of feedback, whether positive or negative, can help you stay on course. So, the next time you receive criticism, try to see it as an opportunity to refine your goals. Ask yourself, does this feedback highlight an area where I can improve? Does it reveal a misalignment between my actions and my values? By using criticism as a tool for reflection and growth, you'll not only strengthen your resolve but also ensure that your efforts are directed toward what truly matters. And as we move forward, we'll explore how cultivating inner peace through acceptance can further empower us to handle criticism with grace and resilience. Now, as we step into the final Stoic way to handle criticism, let's explore the profound power of acceptance. Stoicism teaches us that criticism is an inevitable part of life, something we cannot avoid but can choose to embrace with grace. By accepting criticism as a natural occurrence rather than resisting or resenting it, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that often accompanies it. This acceptance doesn't mean we agree with every critique or stop striving to improve. Instead, it means we recognize that external opinions, whether positive or negative, are beyond our control. What we can control is how we respond, and that's where inner peace begins. Think of criticism like the weather. You can't stop a storm from coming, but you can choose how to prepare for it. Stoicism encourages us to adopt a similar mindset toward feedback. When we accept that criticism will come, just as rain or wind does, we stop seeing it as a personal attack and start viewing it as a neutral event. This shift in perspective allows us to remain calm and composed even in the face of harsh words. It's not about ignoring the criticism or pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about acknowledging it without letting it disrupt our inner balance. One of the most powerful Stoic practices for cultivating this acceptance is the concept of amor fati, or the love of fate. This principle invites us to embrace everything that happens to us, including criticism, as part of the larger tapestry of life. When we learn to love our fate, we stop fighting against what we cannot change and instead focus on how we can grow from it. For example, if someone criticizes your work, you might initially feel defensive or upset. But by practicing amor fati, you can reframe that experience as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and become more resilient. Acceptance also helps us detach from the need for external validation. When we stop seeking approval from others, criticism loses its power to shake our sense of self-worth. Instead of asking, do they like me, or am I good enough, we can ask, am I living in alignment with my values? This shift in focus allows us to remain grounded in our principles, even when others question or challenge us. It's a reminder that our worth isn't determined by what others think of us, but by how authentically we live our lives. Consider the example of Marcus Aurelius, who faced immense criticism and challenges during his reign as Roman emperor. Despite the pressures of leadership and the constant scrutiny of others, he maintained his inner peace by practicing acceptance. In his writings, he often reminded himself that the opinions of others were fleeting and ultimately unimportant. What mattered was his ability to stay true to his values and respond to adversity with wisdom and compassion. His example shows us that acceptance isn't about passivity, it's about strength. By cultivating acceptance, we create a space within ourselves where criticism can't easily penetrate. We become like a sturdy tree in a storm, bending but not breaking under the force of external opinions. This inner resilience allows us to navigate life's challenges with greater ease and confidence. It's a reminder that while we can't control what others say or think, we can always control how we respond. And in that response lies the key to lasting peace. So, as we conclude this exploration of Stoic ways to handle criticism, remember that acceptance is the foundation of inner peace. It's the practice of letting go of what we can't control and focusing on what we can: our thoughts, actions, and values. When we embrace criticism as part of life's journey, we free ourselves from its grip and open the door to growth, resilience, and a deeper sense of calm. And with that, we're ready to move into the final reflections on how these principles can transform not just how we handle criticism, but how we live our lives. Now, let's bring the principle of acceptance into the real world, where it can truly make a difference in how we navigate everyday challenges. Imagine you're at work and a colleague criticizes your presentation. Instead of reacting defensively or letting frustration take over, you pause and remind yourself that their opinion is just one perspective. You accept that their feedback, whether helpful or not, is outside your control. What you can control is how you respond. Maybe you take a moment to reflect: does their critique hold any truth? If so, you use it to improve. If not, you let it go, knowing that your worth isn't tied to their approval. This simple act of acceptance can transform a potentially stressful situation into an opportunity for growth. In relationships, acceptance plays a crucial role in fostering understanding and harmony. Picture this: your partner criticizes something you've done, and your first instinct is to argue or feel hurt. But by practicing Stoic acceptance, you remind yourself that their words are just feedback, not a reflection of your entire being. You listen without immediately reacting, acknowledging their feelings without letting them dictate your emotions. This approach not only diffuses tension but also opens the door to constructive dialogue. Over time, this practice can strengthen your bond, as both of you learn to communicate with empathy and respect, even when criticism arises. Social media, with its constant stream of opinions and judgments, is another area where acceptance can be a game changer. Let's say you post something online and someone leaves a harsh comment. It's easy to feel attacked or to spiral into self-doubt. But Stoicism teaches us to accept that not everyone will agree with or like what we share, and that's okay. Instead of engaging in a heated argument or deleting the post out of fear, you can choose to let the comment exist without giving it power over you. You might even use it as a reminder to focus on the people who appreciate your content, rather than seeking validation from everyone. This shift in mindset can help you navigate the digital world with greater confidence and peace. Even in personal growth, acceptance is a powerful tool. Think about a time when you set a goal and fell short. It's natural to feel disappointed or even critical of yourself. But Stoic acceptance invites you to view this moment not as a failure but as part of the process. You accept that setbacks are inevitable, and instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you focus on what you can learn and how you can move forward. This approach not only reduces self-criticism but also fuels resilience, helping you bounce back stronger and more determined. By applying the principle of acceptance in these everyday scenarios, we can transform how we experience criticism and adversity. It's not about ignoring or suppressing our emotions, but about choosing how we engage with them. When we accept what we cannot control, whether it's a colleague's feedback, a partner's critique, or a stranger's comment online, we free ourselves from the weight of external judgments. And in that freedom, we find the space to grow, connect, and thrive. With this understanding, let's now explore how historical figures have embodied this principle, showing us the timeless power of Stoic acceptance. Now, let's step back in time to see how Stoic acceptance has been put into practice by some of history's most remarkable figures. These stories not only inspire but also show us how embracing criticism with grace can lead to profound personal growth and resilience. Take the example of Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers and a Roman emperor. Despite his immense power, he faced constant criticism from political rivals, advisors, and even the public. Yet, Marcus Aurelius chose to respond with acceptance rather than anger. In his personal writings, later compiled as meditations, he often reflected on the idea that criticism is an external event, something beyond his control. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By focusing on his own virtues and actions rather than the opinions of others, Marcus Aurelius demonstrated how acceptance can transform criticism into a tool for self-improvement and inner peace. Another powerful example is Epictetus, a former slave who became one of Stoicism's most influential teachers. Epictetus faced harsh criticism throughout his life, both for his humble origins and his philosophical teachings. Yet he remained steadfast in his belief that our reactions to criticism are what truly matter. He famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Epictetus taught his students to view criticism as an opportunity to practice virtue, rather than as a personal attack. His life and teachings remind us that acceptance isn't about ignoring criticism, but about using it to strengthen our character and resilience. Then there's Seneca, the Stoic philosopher and advisor to Emperor Nero. Seneca's life was filled with challenges, including exile and constant political scrutiny. Despite this, he maintained a calm and accepting attitude, even in the face of harsh criticism. In his letters, Seneca often emphasized the importance of focusing on what we can control and letting go of what we cannot. He wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." By accepting criticism as a natural part of life, Seneca was able to navigate his turbulent circumstances with wisdom and composure. These historical figures show us that Stoic acceptance isn't just a theoretical concept, it's a practical tool for living a resilient and meaningful life. By following their example, we can learn to face criticism with the same grace and strength, using it as a stepping stone for growth rather than a stumbling block. As we move forward, let's explore how these timeless principles can be applied in our own lives, helping us to handle criticism with greater ease and confidence. As we bring this exploration of Stoic wisdom to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the 25 powerful ways Stoicism teaches us to handle criticism. From understanding the nature of criticism and practicing the dichotomy of control, to embracing self-reflection and cultivating emotional resilience, each principle offers a unique lens through which we can view and respond to feedback. Together, these practices form a toolkit for transforming criticism from a source of pain into an opportunity for growth, self-discovery, and inner peace. Stoicism reminds us that criticism, whether constructive or harsh, is an inevitable part of life. But it's not the criticism itself that defines us, it's how we choose to respond. By adopting these Stoic principles, we can shift our perspective, strengthen our character, and navigate even the most challenging feedback with grace and confidence. Whether it's through practicing empathy, focusing on our virtues, or finding humor in difficult moments, Stoicism provides us with the tools to rise above negativity and stay true to ourselves. Now it's your turn to put these principles into action. Start small, perhaps by reflecting on a recent criticism and asking yourself what you can learn from it. Or try responding to feedback with silence or gratitude, even when it feels difficult. Remember, the goal isn't to become immune to criticism, but to handle it in a way that aligns with your values and helps you grow. We'd love to hear how these Stoic practices have helped you in your own life. Share your experiences, challenges, or insights in the comments below. Let's build a community of resilience and growth, supporting each other as we navigate the ups and downs of life. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content on Stoicism and personal growth. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's embrace the wisdom of the Stoics and transform the way we handle criticism one step at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, your response to criticism is where your true power lies.